Now everybody, Cantonese Cat here. I'm going to do a quick video here just for a few minutes. Somebody requested three things. One is DXY. What do I think about DXY, which is the US dollar index? I think it's very important to look at it in isolation and also look at it in a greater picture. First of all, you look in isolation, you look at the monthly here for the US dollar index. You can see over the last few cycles, this is cycle number, most recent cycle here, the cycle before that, and maybe another cycle before that, right? You can see how the peak over here is looking a little bit more like morning star, sorry, not morning star, evening star formation, where you have green candle, doji, red candle. This generally favors further bearish continuation. Kind of like how you have a trident over here, favors bearish continuation. Kind of how you have a trident over here, favors bearish continuation. Kind of how you have a trees at top over here and a trees at top over here, favors bearish continuation, right? If you look at just in isolation, you would think, hey, you know, this looks like it could hold this support level here, guys. It looks like it's just wanting to hold that, and you can't really go down that much further because the cloud is right there, right? But it breaks down underneath the cloud all the time. The US dollar does that, you know. So I can't really necessarily say that this is a bearish chart just based on looking in isolation, because you are getting close to a lot of these, you know, different support levels over here. But one thing that makes me feel more confident about the US dollar being in possibly have topped here back in like January. One thing that I feel pretty good about is if you look at it in conjunction with the US liquidity supply, not US liquidity, if you look at global M2 liquidity supply here, that actually look very, very interesting, right? If you line the two up together, if I turn this into a line here, I can chart this in a couple ways. Number one is I can basically chart this over here. You can see how it's been kind of trying to push through global liquidity here and push through at a back test here. Same thing over here, right? You have a horizontal zone of resistance zone over here where you're able to break through and back tested it, right? Same thing you had over here. You have a horizontal zone over here, and where you're able to break out of that, and then you end up back getting a little bit of back test over here, right? During the entire time, whenever you end up having a back test and the next like up for the global liquidity, the US dollar plummets, right? Even though it looks like it was going to keep going higher, this looks like a higher high, right? So higher high means usually very bullish continuation. Here's another higher high. It looks like it could be having some very bullish continuation, right? But the thing is, this usually turns out to be maybe a little bit of a fake out, because you see a breakthrough back test and everybody's like super scared. Oh no, global liquidity is going down. That's usually when the US dollar has a little bit of hurrah, like kind of go up here, a little bit of exhausted top, if you will. Same thing here, right? You have the back test of global liquidity of this breakout zone, and your US dollar just kind of going crazy. Here, what happened? You have a back test of the US dollar. You have the back test of the global liquidity here, right? And US dollar kind of have a peak over here. Doesn't mean that it's just going to keep going higher. I don't know. It depends on what global liquidity does. Over the last two cycles during these kinds of area over here, usually global liquidity ends up going up a lot higher, and US dollar end up plummeting down. And this leg over here from April 2000 to December 2000 was the leg up for Bitcoin, and this leg over here from December 16 to January 2018, that's the big leg up for Bitcoin as well, right? So I think we are kind of close to around those levels, and actually if you look at it that way, I actually don't feel that bearish on what Bitcoin is doing right now, because again, US dollar was plummeted, even though it looked like it was going to go a lot higher from like, you know, April 2020 to like December December 2020, somewhere around there. That's a big leg up for Bitcoin, right? Same thing around 2016, big leg up for Bitcoin. I just wonder whether or not we're at that juncture where it's kind of just faking everybody out, and I wonder whether or not this is actually going to bode very well for Bitcoin, for risk assets across the board. We will see. I could be completely wrong, and this could be bad macro, whatever that means, that a lot of people keep on, you know, just referring to. But just wanted to share my thoughts on that, because I think that is pretty important. Not world conflict or something, you know, it's WW is WW international. Somebody asked me about this chart. I'm just going to say right off the bat, on the weekly, on the monthly here, I don't know. It looks like we're going down in declining volume, which is always good, but the only issue is it's not really meeting any of my big criteria. If you're looking at the criteria where I have for catching falling knife, I usually look at three things. One is volume, the other one is RSI, and the third I look at is whether or not it's touching low Bollinger Band a couple of times. It's not touching low Bollinger Band, it's all the way down, right? This is a falling knife. right? So I don't know whether or not it's going to end up touching the lower Bollinger Band at any point. Unless if it touches the lower Bollinger Band, I don't even really want to like touch this thing. Is it on bullish divergence? Well, the entire time it's going down over here, it's on bullish divergence over here. You have a little bit of bullish divergence maybe building up over here. But, okay, so one criteria may be fulfilled potentially. You're decelerating this big giant downtrend. Maybe this is kind of like the move to kind of push up a lot higher, but it still looks like a falling knife here. So I'm going to be a little bit more cautious. The third thing is whether or not you have any capitulation volume. I don't really see capitulation volume over here. So no capitulation volume, not touching the low Bollinger Band. You have some bullish divergence here. That's not good enough for me to want to get into it. That's kind of what I think about WW. The last one is Aspen. Somebody asked me about this brutal downtrend for about the last 6 months. It's not really going down on declining volume because in February you actually have increasing volume over here with a pretty nice bodied candle here that's bearish, right? So I get a little bit worried about this stock. I just don't know whether or not we're near the end of the correction. I'm not seeing any any bullish divergence over here. If you're looking at the weekly chart, RSI is like really oversold, but that it can stay oversold for a very long time. I do think that the scan chart here, which may give you some decent market symmetry with these arcs, I do think that it's getting close to this arc over here. It's getting pretty close to a confluent zone support over here. So if you want to try and catch a falling knife, maybe 7.5 may be a good area to enter, but this is a huge falling knife, and I just don't like catching a falling knife like this. Do you have, let's kind of go back to some of the criteria here. If you look at a weekly chart, you're wondering whether or not this thing has bounced. It did have two capitulation events, right? Capitulation event number 1, capitulation event number 2, right? It did have two capitulation events, which is good. If you're looking at the Bollinger Band, maybe like 6.5, if it ends up touching a little Bollinger Band over here, that could be potentially a good entry zone. But again, I don't know whether or not when it touches that low Bollinger Band, it could just end up continuing to slip down to the floor, right? So that's a little bit concerning there. And then finally, if you're looking for any potential bullish divergence, even this is just on the weekly, right? I'm not even talking about monthly. Weekly, that bullish divergence is not even that reliable. And I don't even really see any bullish divergence here on the weekly. So I don't know whether or not this downtrend is over yet. I'm just going to kind of stay away from that. I can say one thing: if you are looking from the previous top over here to the bottom over here, and if you are doing a you're doing a log scale, and you get rid of this Gann chart over here for just a second, you're getting pretty close to 7.5 here, which is 0.136, which is a pretty important fit level here. We'll see where it bounds. Hopefully we're able to reverse the trend going sideways, but it still looks like a falling knife to me, so not favorable. Anyway, thank you so much for listening, guys. Have a good one. Bye.